Hi guys, Brian from Anarchy Models here. Today we're looking at using our Dungeon Creator stencil, which this is the sort of thing you can create here, which looks really cool. You can create your own modular dungeon, and you've got other optional things. So you have a set of stairs here which you can make separate and just place on there to make it look like you have a stairs at one end. Yeah. So first off, preparation. You do need a little bit more preparation with this one to make sure you've got all the things you need to make the dungeon. Obviously we need the stencil. So this is the 25mm square Dungeon Creator. So we have a large grid here. We can mask off different areas of this, as I'll show you later, creating the different parts of the dungeon. We have an area here to create a little pool with a wall around it. We have the stairs. I have a little mask here for colouring individual squares, and a grill, and some cracks of different sizes that we can use to add the cracks like we have in here. You don't have to put those on, you could just do it with no cracks like this one. It's up to you. That's why we've left them separate, so you have the option. We also have the 30mm Dungeon Creator, which is that one there, which is the same, apart from we've resized some of the details there. Also what we'll need, you need a cutting mat, some good masking tape, you need a knife, some paints, and if you've got something like this, which is cool for safety cutting nice straight lines, that's really useful. If not, a good metal ruler, otherwise you might chop your fingers off cutting this stuff, because it is quite tough to cut. It's quite thick, as we can see. And that's another thing you'll need. You'll need your material for making the dungeon on. I've chosen to go for this, which is mount board, and you can get this from many art shops. I got an A3 piece like this, and these were only about 80p. The larger sizes worked out even cheaper, so it's quite a good cheap material. And the beauty of it is it's already black. We don't have to paint it black to start off. Or you could use a white side for something, but I've bought this because it's black. I don't need to repaint it. It's ready to go. Another option you could use is something like this, which is foam board. But with some foam boards like this one, it is quite easy to damage the surface. So if you do look for a foam board, make sure the surface is quite tough. Certainly tougher than this one, as it's very easy to damage it. You could use MDF or plasticard, or you could just use a large MDF board and not make it modular, just make it a fixed dungeon and that's it. But I quite like the modular idea myself, and you can just change it every time. So to start with, I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration that some of this stencil can be used by sponging. You know I normally do things with the airbrush. This one you can use a sponge as well, or instead of. So let's grab some of the material here. So the first thing we need to do is the stencil comes like this, all together in one piece. Now it is easier to chop these down into individual pieces. It's easier to move around the table. So the idea is you just cut these little joins here. You then end up with the grid. Now, as you can see, I've already masked off this area here with some masking tape. If it's very sticky masking tape, you can stick it to something else first, a cutting mat or on your trousers or something, just to remove a bit of the stickiness. And unlike with the airbrush, we don't need to mask off everything. We only need to mask off the actual area we're working on. So we're going to come back to do the airbrush in a minute. But for now, we're just going to do a quick sponge technique in this corner here. So I've just got a bit of plasticard here. You could use anything. What we're going to need to do is have a few drops of different paints on the board here. So I've got 3 different greys, as you can see there. Now I'm just using these Vallejo air paints just because that's what I've got to hand. You could use normal model paints for this. It's probably easier. So I've just got these little sponges. These came in a figure tray that I bought, but any sponges will do. Just test it on something first to see if you like the pattern that the sponge creates. So to start off with, we go for the darkest colour, and we're going to get this front of the sponge covered, but then we are a bit like dry brushing, going to get some of the paint off so we're not sopping wet. Now the trick here is you're going to stab it down onto the page and not wipe it. If you wipe it sideways, you're going to end up catching paint on the stencil and you'll have a little puddle around the edge. So we're pressing down like this, not going across. So we just press the sponge down. You can see there we're already starting to build up a pattern. If there's some bits that you think are too strong, just use your finger, smear them around a bit. So you just continue building up the pattern until you're happy you've got a good base. So we start with like with dry brushing, we start with the darkest first and build up to the lightest colour. So that's a good base of the base colour. I'm now going to move on to a lighter colour. I'm not bothering to get a different sponge, it's still greys, no, it doesn't matter. Again, just build the colour up. This does take a little bit longer than airbrushing, but it gives a different effect, and it gives you the option if you don't have an airbrush. So I think we're ready for the last colour now. This is the lightest colour. So there we go. Now you can obviously use any colours you like. I've just chosen greys to be a stone. It looks very motley right now, but as soon as we peel the stencil off, you can see we have our stones there. It's quite cool. Now you could then come in and put some cracks and other things in, but the actual small cracks on the stencil won't work with sponging, they're too small. So you might want to use something like this and just draw them on. So that's the sponging option. The other option is to use the airbrush, which is what I normally use. So I'm just going to show you now with the 25mm square dungeon creator how we use that one. So let's move that out of the way for now. Again, I'm going to cut the tags. It's just easier to use the stencil when it's in separate pieces. The reason these are there is to keep it all together while they're in the package. So we'll move that to one side. So we have our grid. Now we need to mask off some of this. So you need to have an idea of what you want to do with the dungeon before we start. So I'm going to make some corridors. I'm going to make a T-junction. You can make whatever you like. You could mask off. You have a nice long corridor, or you could mask off something like this. and you have a corner, or you could make a big room that has a horseshoe shape cut out of it. You just mask off the grid depending on what you want to do. So I'm going to start off by masking off one end here to create a corridor. You want to line the tape up just off of the cutout, and that way you keep the irregular detail. Now, one trick you can do, which is quite cool, is you can do two sections at once. So what I'm going to do here is mask off this area as well, and create a T-junction. So to make a T-junction you need a straight edge on your tape, so you put that on the cutting mat and cut a straight edge. Like that. You only need one straight edge per side. So we have our stencil is ready for doing a T-junction section and a corridor section. You can obviously move these around, have them different sizes, but it is quite handy if you do two at once. And if you want lots of the same size corridor, it's a good idea to try and do those all at the same time as well, to save you having to retape it for the same size. And we place the stencil where we want it to go. And it's always a good idea, if possible, to take the corners down. So they can't move while working. Now I'm just going to use these other things here to cover up the rest of the board. We could tape the rest of the board, but it's cheaper just to cover it up. As long as we have the edge here with tape, we don't need to worry about covering up the whole thing. So I'm just going to use that bit there, and that's going to be enough to cover the rest of the stencil up. Just put another bit there on the safe side. So start off. So we have quite a light grey here. I find it's better to start from this sort of colour and build it up against the black rather than having to start with a really dark colour first. So just light dustings of paint. You can see here, even though I'm using a very light grey, if I show it on there you can see it's much lighter than the black. If I'm just dusting it on, you only get a light covering. So once you've got a light pass on there, we're going to follow the lines of the grid. If you haven't got the control to do that, then just layer the grey on however you like. But I like to follow the line of the grid, so we kind of highlight each one. You don't need to be terribly precise with this, as long as it goes more or less where the edge of the stones are. So just follow the edge of the boxes. Like so. The same down the bottom. Now I normally just give it a quick dusting over the top, and that'll be ready for the next colour. So now I'm just going to put into this the same grey, just a bit of a lighter grey, just to bring out the highlights a bit more. So I've got a lighter grey in here now, I'm just going to go along the edges now. I'm not going to do any dusting over the whole thing. You might be able to see I'm half on the stencil I'm spraying as well. Now I also like to do some little swirly patterns on the grid there, just to give the stones a bit of variation. So something, you know, just a few little swirls, something like that. Breaks up the evenness of all these stones a bit more. Move our masking. So now it's time to remove the stencil. If you're going to want to create more of the same shapes, then leave the tape on the stencil. Let's carefully peel it off of the board. And there you go. That's dungeon pattern. Now, as I say, I like to have a modular dungeon. We could have had these all connected up and rooms and stuff as a fixed board, but I like them to be modular. So I am now going to cut them off the board. So you make sure this is fully dry before I put the ruler on there. That's fine. So we have our T-junction section. Then we have our corridor section. So you can then use those to create your dungeon. And like I said earlier, we have the optional stairs piece, which you could have anywhere you like. Also, you might not want your dungeon all the same colour. One way we can change that is on the stencil sheet. Here on the stencil sheet we have this masking area, and we can use that to pick out individual squares to make them a different colour. So we'll cut the joins to the sheet to remove it. So you're going to end up with this shape. Now we can use that to mask off around a square and then recolour it. And we don't want to use an actual paint here, because what's going to happen is you'll recolour the black as well. The trick to this is you want to use a transparent paint, so something like this, which is the game ink. If you want a very subtle change of colour, you could use the like a wash and gently airbrush the wash on. For this I'm just going to use some of the game ink. Now I'm going to try and be careful and not paint the rest of the area here, but it might be safer to tape around the stencil. So there we go. We can see that the brown hasn't really changed the black at all, and it's recoloured one of the stones. So there you can have a nice alternating pattern on your stones there. Or you could just spray the whole thing brown. I find it easier to do everything with a grey, so you only got to worry about one colour, and then just change things afterwards with the transparent paint if I want to. So that's how you would make a corridor or a T-junction, and a similar thing would apply for anywhere else. If you wanted a large room, you would just mask around the area you want for the room. So something, you know, like that. You've got a square room, or you can have a very long room like that, tiny little square room. You just mask off the areas of the stencil you want to create your dungeon, and we'll come back later on with a whole big pile of cool stuff from Dungeon Made. Next I'm going to quickly show you how to use the stairs part. So here we're going to make a set of stairs like this, which you could have in either direction on your board, like that. So here we have a stairs coming up from that way, here we have a stairs coming down from this way, and believe it or not, all this was done with one colour of paint. It doesn't look like it, but this is a good trick I'm going to show you. It's all about the transparency of using an airbrush for doing the painting. So I have a small section of the board here, I have a stencil. I'm just going to place that in the middle there, and I'm going to tape it to itself so it can't move about. Like that. I'm also going to tape it down to the cutting mat so it can't move. So we have our same light grey that we used for the grid earlier, and to start off with we're just going to use this piece that comes out in the middle here. We're going to mask up to the little crossbar piece here, so we can put the mask up to the edge, and we're just going to very lightly spray across one step. Now here's the tricky part. Well, it's not the tricky part, this is how the trick works. We'll then mask the next one, but we spray over both parts. Now what's going to happen here is this part is just going to get a bit lighter. Like that. And we keep doing that as we move the stencil down. And the very last one, all we're doing is very light, one pass, and that's it. Now it doesn't look quite right now, but as soon as we take the stencil off, it really starts to look like a set of descending or ascending stairs. So if we then trim this, so there we have our set of stairs for use with our 25mm Dungeon Creator stairs. Have it either direction. We have it down here. How you want to do it. So now we're going to go back to do a bit more painting. Next, I'm quickly going to show you how the how using the cracks works. Same again. Just trim the sheet. It's just easier to handle if it's not all in one piece. So you have the big cracks here. So now, because the paint isn't really going to travel very far and get in the crack as well, we don't really need to mask off everything. So I'm just going to hold the stencil like this, and the black isn't really going to affect the rest of the area either. So just carefully paint where the crack is. If you haven't got the trigger control to stay as tight as that, then do mask off the rest of the board. So we have our cracked corner there. Let's try this one over here. The trick is, don't move the stencil while you're painting. If you do, you'll get a ghosted image and look a bit strange. So lift the stencil up. You have the cracks there. We've got a slight bit of overspray through the other one, but I quite like that. We also have the very small cracks, so we can pick a couple of those as well. So there you go, some cracked floor tiles. So next we're going to have a go at making our little well here. Now you could use a different colour, and it could be like a pool of slime, or if you use green, or a pool of blood if you use red. I've just used it blue here. And you could also do this as part of a really large board. But I like to have it as an optional thing you can add into the tiles if you want to. So that's why I've done as a small section like this, rather than adding it to a huge room. So have my mount board here, same stuff as before, and I've already masked off the area that I want. So if we go ahead and apply that to the board, I'm just going to tape it to the table down here as well. So I've got the same grey we were using earlier in here, and just the same things before. Light dusting to start with, and follow the lines of the tiles. So let's remove our stencil. Here you have the tiles. So you put this one to one side. Again, I've already masked off the next bit we're going to use. We're going to use these three pieces that come on the detailing area, and if you notice I've masked off all of them together. The reason for that is it makes it easier for when you need to go from this one to this one to this one. So use these three parts to make the little well here. So first off, I'm going to decide where I want it to go. Now I like to zero this circle on this middle square. You could try and do it somewhere else, but that's how I like to do it. So that looks in the middle to me. So if we take that down, now I need to mask off this other area here. I've just made this little shield so we can take that off. So now what we need to do is we need to colour this in black again. This is to give us the outline of our edging there. So again, light coat to start with, just to build up a layer. So now we have the hole filled in. We need to remove the stencil. The next part we need is this part. Now if we can see, if the camera can see it, you'll notice there's a thin line running around the edge of this set of edging here. Now I want to line that thin line up with the edge of the black hole. If you don't, then the edging will be off wonky, and it'll look strange. So we'll just line that up. So now we have this lined up nicely. We're going to do the stones. So same as before, light dusting around the whole area, and then pick out where the stones join to give a bit of a highlight. So there we have our little well. Now you could, if you wanted to, just leave it like that and it's just an empty well. That's your choice, it's up to you. But if you want to carry on and make it full of water, then we use this last piece. Now again, we line up, so you have this edge here. Just change the light so we can see it. have this thin line here running around the circle. We have that lined up with the outside of the ring there, and I think if we hold this under the camera we can just about see, you can see the stones underneath through the stencil. You can see it easier in real life, but on the camera you can just about see the stone lines here. So just make sure that's stuck down. Mask off the other piece. To add the water we're going to use these two colours. So we have the Game Air Magic Blue and the Game Ink Azure Blue, and these work really well in combination, as you'll see in a second. So this may look like a really strange colour to be doing water with, but you'll see in a minute it works really well. So start off, we're going to be passing the paint mainly just around the edge of the stencil, and we're going to be aiming sort of just onto the stencil itself rather than just off the stencil. So we're aiming around here as we go round. As you can see, that's already looking quite like a pool. We have the middle where it's deepest is going to be darker, and round the edge where we have the wall of the well, that's going to be able to catch light, and that's going to make, so that's the lighter area. So we just go round a few more times and build up the lighter blue around the edge. There we go. Now at the moment it doesn't look quite right. Let's do a bit more. Yeah, at the moment it looks too bright. Adding the ink, which is a transparent paint, will really change the way it looks. So this is the Azure Blue. And as you can see, it's not really changing the black at all. All it's doing is changing the white page, and that's what a transparent paint does. It just changes what's there already. So it's not really going to touch the middle where it's blackest. So with this, we're going to be aiming mainly for the middle of the page. And then slowly bring it out slightly towards the edge. We don't want to bring it all the way to the edge too much. Just lightly, and then concentrating again in the middle. That's gotten quite wet there, you might be able to see a slight shine, so I'm just going to dry it off with the air. There we go, so it's now not shiny, that means it's dry. Now if you wanted to, you could use a gloss varnish in there now to make it look a bit more like water, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. And there we have our little well. So as usual, I normally like to trim these off. You could try and make this the perfect shape at the start, but I find it's easier to just cut the edges off after we've actually laid the paint down. So there we go. So now we have two little wells. The last part we have on the sheet here is this grill here for making a grill in the floor. As you can see, I've already painted with this part here, and we do need to be able to see through it to be able to put it in the right place. So I'm going to quickly show you now the best way to clean these off. Now you'll need to clean with the correct cleaner. So I've been painting with Vallejo, so I have Vallejo airbrush cleaner. The trick is put it onto something absorbent, that way when the paint gets washed off it goes through and it gets absorbed onto here, otherwise it ends up covering the back of the stencil with lots of painty cleaner. So we get some airbrush cleaner on our kitchen towel and just wipe it off. As you can see, all the paint's been removed and it's got soaked up on underneath, and also the back of the stencil's clean. Sometimes some might get on the back there, just wipe it off. But now the stencil's nice and clean, we can now see through it. As we can see here, we can see the edge of the square. We can see through it for lining up the grid. So if we pick where we want it to go, I think there works quite well. And again, we do need to tape off the rest of the area. So we have our black in the airbrush, and just lightly go over the grid. So give it one coat, another coat, and as these slots are meant to look like holes into the floor, there want to be a nice strong black on there, but be careful not to put too much paint on at once and make it run. So there we go, that'll be enough for that. Remove our stencil and masks. You can see we have our little grid in the floor. Now you can see we have these little notches where the line doesn't continue. That has to be there, or the little box is just going to fall out the stencil. Now you could fill those in with a paintbrush, but I have one of these permanent ultra fine point Sharpies. So it's a really small point on there. And I find this is the easiest thing to touch in these little pieces. So there we go. We're going to have a little drain or something else sunk into the floor of the dungeon. Now, we could just leave our dungeon tiles as they are, but to me, even with the cracks and things, they still look a little bit clean for a dungeon which is, I imagine, dark and dank and just grubby. So a little trick I've thought up is we can use these, which is the Game Colour washes. And don't get these confused with the inks. The inkers are a lot stronger. They're a similar type of thing, but these are a lot stronger colour than the washes. So for the weathering, we want to use the wash. So just give them a shake. I've just gone for a couple of different browns and a black, and I'm just going to dob some on the panel there, and just using my finger, you can just smear it around. It won't really change the black, but it will break up the monotony of the tiles a little bit. So you can see looking a lot more grubby, I think a bit more realistic. And on the well, it would be quite cool to put some around the well, but being careful not to get it on the water. Imagine lots of people are going to be coming over to the well and gathering water or whatever, so that should be nice and dirty around the well where people have been walking. There we go. The same as corridor, just maybe even a few different colours. Could maybe do this with a sponge, but I quite like doing a bit of finger painting. So again, as we can see, the wash isn't changing the lines between the tiles at all. All it's doing is making the top a bit grubby. So there we go, they look a bit more weathered now. You could do even more than that and make them even more weathered, but I quite like the difference it makes. You can see here, this one hasn't been done, this one has been done. I just think it looks a lot better. So after you finish painting all your dungeon, it's a good idea to remove the tape from the stencil. If you don't, there's a chance that the tape can stick to it quite badly. It depends on the masking tape itself, but I have had it happen and it's annoying to get the tape off. But if you take it off the same day you use it, you won't have a problem. As you can see, you don't need to be too careful with the stencil, although if it does stick, you do have to be careful it's not going to stretch the grid work. So that was the 25mm grid that we just used. This is the 30mm grid for the other one. So this is the two main parts of the two Dungeon Creator stencils. Now, off camera I've gone ahead and created a few more things for our dungeon. So I made a nice big room here, big crack, a few little cracks, bit of grubbiness. And we have a two-tone corridor. We have our well, we can put that in that nice big room there. The T-junction, stairs going off into who knows where. And we have another corridor, another room. Now you can obviously make as large a dungeon as you want, it's just down to your imagination. All the techniques you've seen here I've covered. The only thing I didn't cover is these two ones here were done the same way as this with the transparent paint. Just do it grey, transparent over the top, and it just saves having to have too many different colours on the go. So let your imaginations go, guys. Come up with your own dungeons. Thanks for watching. Cheers, bye.